إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. Dear brothers, I bear witness that there is no deity but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is his servant and messenger. Dear brothers, I spoke before about living the good life and living a happy life, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to go through this life. He has laid out a path for us, and He has done ibtila for us. He is challenging us, He's testing us, He is putting us to the test. Everything we go through this life is a form of ibtila. But at the same time, He wants us to live a balanced life and a happy life. But speaking about happy life and how that is tied to doing the good deed, spoke about how doing the good deed is the pathway to feel good and to live happy. But speaking about happiness is not complete unless we speak about its counter state. Speak about sadness, الحزن. And this week was a reminder for me about that with the events that are happening in Syria. So I thought we should talk about this because that's how you complete the topic of how to live happy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. He starts by saying, وَلَا تَهِنُوا. Do not be weak. Do not be ineffective. Do not be soft. And then he says, وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا, because one leads to the other. But he started with the consequence. وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا, and don't be sad. This particular verse was spoken in the context of the battle that the Muslims have lost in Uhud. وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. And you are higher. You are higher if you are believers. So he is focusing their minds on what is truly positive and what's going to lift them out of their حزن, despair, sadness, and its consequence, weakness, and ineffectiveness. He is reminding them of what is true, what is real, what is valuable. You are higher if you are a believer, because everything is a test. It's all a test. Of course they wanted to win, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose for them to lose. And that's ibtila. And so we go through this life. And the Prophet ﷺ, in his famous supplication, he says, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from worry and from sadness. And then he says, وَمِنَ الْعَجْزِ وَالْكَسَلِ. Consequence. From inability and from laziness. From ineffectiveness and from laziness. One leads to the other. And so we go through this life, and we want things, we have expectations. And of course, الْمُؤْمِنُ الْقَوِيِّ خَيْرٌ مِّنَ الْمُؤْمِنِ الضَّعِيفِ. The strong believer is better than the weak believer. وَفِي كُلٍّ خَيْرٌ. And both are good. You should strive to do what you think is good and what you think is going to give the best results. But we all know that life never goes according to plan. We all go through one disappointment to the next. And that's life. And that's ibtila. So this is not a call to be lazy and not be focused and not have plans. But this is a call to be realistic about it. In fact, this is a call how you can go through it and stay strong. And stay strong. How you can absorb all of that and stay strong. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ. So you would not be, so how you go through this life? You would not be feeling sorry for what you have lost. لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ. And at the same time, وَلَا تَفْرَحُوا بِمَا آتَاكُمْ. Don't be really happy with what you have gained. It's all a test. What you have lost is a test, and what you have gained is a test. So stay focused. And think of it, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى, for Allah is the higher example. Think of it as how you would treat your young child. They have a lot of wants and a lot of expectations, and you try to raise them good. And sometimes you give them what they want, but many times you probably don't do what they want, because what they want is not necessarily good for them. And who is to say what you want is good for you? And that's after you do everything you're supposed to be doing. You just have taslim. You submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you accept what He has chosen for you. Because what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen for you is probably better than what you wanted to choose for yourself. And this, with this mental shift about focusing what is positive, look what Prophet Yaqub said. Prophet Yaqub, he was very sad. He lost 2 of his children. He cried. But he only pointed his sadness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He had the direct relationship and connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he told the people around him, I tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala my sadness. But then what did he tell to his children? He told them to stay positive. He told them, وَلَا تَيْأَسُوا مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ. Don't be despair of the relief of Allah, because the relief of Allah may come. And he told them what to do, and he had a plan for them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewarded him in the end. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was often sad because his tribe and his family and his friends, relatives are not believing. Sometimes he talks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes he leaves it in his heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ. Maybe you are keeping yourself in sorrow because they are not believing. And he tells him, don't be despaired that they didn't believe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling him, فَلَا تَذْهَبْ نَفْسُكَ عَلَيْهِمْ حَسَرَاتٍ. Don't have any sorrow for them. And then we come back to the biggest example in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, and that's the Battle of Uhud. And of course we know the story and how they didn't listen to him and they lost, and many people have died and got killed in that battle. But look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. إِذْ تُصْعِدُونَ وَلَا تَلْوُونَ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ. You are running up the mountain and you're not listening to anyone. You're running and you're not even listening to, you're not focusing on anything around you. وَالرَّسُولُ يَدْعُوكُمْ فِي أُخْرَاكُمْ. And the Prophet is calling upon you. Come back. Stand your ground. فَأَثَابَكُمْ غَمًّا بِغَمٍّ. And then He gave you misery after misery. He righteously gave you فَأَثَابَكُمْ غَمًّا بِغَمٍّ. And so what is the first misery and what is the second misery? Because after that He says, كَيْ لَا تَحْزَنُوا عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكُمْ كَيْ لَا تَحْزَنُوا عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ وَلَا مَا أَصَابَكُمْ. So you would not feel sorry for what you have missed out on and what have happened to you. So you wouldn't feel sorry about those things. But what is this gham after gham? What is this misery after misery that is going to make you end up feeling better? They ran away, they lost the battle after they almost won the battle, and they missed out on the winning part, and then they became losers. They became the kuffar were running after them, and many have been killed. But something also happened that made them even far more sad at that time, at that moment. What happened is they thought the Prophet ﷺ was killed also. And then they were extremely despair, extreme sadness. And then after that, And that's the second sadness. And then after that, they found out that he is alive. And they were very happy. They were rejoicing. And all of a sudden their sadness has turned upside down, 180 degrees. And their energy was rejuvenated. And many people know about the Battle of Uhud, but not so many people know about the next day. Hamra al-Asad. Hamra al-Asad is the place of another battle that didn't take place. Right the next day, 24 hours later. Because the kuffar or disbelievers, Quraysh, was thinking this is an opportunity, let's finish this once and for all and go to the Medina. So the Prophet and his companions, after all the misery that they have suffered, gathered and wanted to preemptively face them before they come. And they went to this place called Hamra al-Asad, and when the kuffar saw this determination and this solidarity, and they said, no, this is not something we want to do. And they just turned around. The very next day. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you like a rock. Wants you to live like a rock. Balanced. Even in the face of sadness. And in the face of sorrow. So what kind of things would happen? Okay. Maybe you wanted to go to a college that you didn't get accepted in. So what? You go to the next best thing. And who's to say that success in life actually depends on that particular place that you wanted to go? Maybe you wanted a particular job. You don't know the future. No one knows the future. No one knows what's best for you. Maybe you lost some money. And you feel sad. Of course, losing money makes you feel sad. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gave you that money to begin with. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you that money to begin with. You didn't have it. He gave it to you. Well, I worked hard for it. That's true. But He gave you the health to work hard for it. He gave you the ability to work hard for it. He gave you the opportunity to work hard for it. And if you intended to do good with it, inshallah He will give you the reward, even if it's gone. A lot of people, when they lose money, they start thinking, what could I have done with this? And some people say, well, I could have done charity too with it. Well, just remember next time you do have that money, that you said that. Maybe you didn't marry the spouse that you wanted to marry. Well, who's to say that that family would have been happy? You don't know. You're just assuming. Why don't you just focus on what is positive? Focus on the job that you have right now, how you can do good with it. On the education that you have right now, how you can do with it. On the spouse and family that you have right now and how you can make them a good family. Maybe you lost your parents. You could feel sad about that. But maybe you should think about if you treated them well. Well, you say, Alhamdulillah, I did birr when they were here. Prophet ﷺ says, if they reach an elderly age while in your lifetime, while you are alive, while they're close to you, and Allah gives you this opportunity to enter Jannah, and you don't use that opportunity to enter Jannah, you've missed out a lot. Maybe you didn't do birr. Maybe you were not good to them. And you feel sad about that. You missed out on the opportunity. Maybe you should have done something better. Well, guess what? You still can. Yes, you can do birr even after they pass away. You can do what they wanted you to do. Maybe they wanted you to take care of your brothers and sisters. I'm sure they do. Even if they're not here and they're dead, I assure you that's what they want you to do. And that is birr for them. Maybe they have a friend that you can visit. That is birr for them. You know what your parents want from you. You could still do birr for them even after they pass. Again, focus on the positive. Come out from the negative and focus on the positive. Control your sadness. Be strong. Be balanced. Be productive. Don't be weak. Don't be lazy. And then, maybe you lost a child. And that is a very painful thing. I don't know of anything more painful than this. But maybe you should be grateful to the opportunity Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gave you that child to begin with. And has given you the opportunity to care for that child. And maybe that child passed in peace. Because not everybody gets that. Maybe you should be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because you don't know when that child, if that child has grown up, what kind of life they would have had. You just don't know. Maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen best for that child. Maybe that child, with his short life, has lived the best years of his life or her life. And if you have any doubt, well, let me tell you about a more saddening story. And of course, this is going to get, whether I like it or not, it's going to get a little political. Just 2 days ago, let me tell you about a story of a family. What happened to this family on Wednesday, just 2 days ago. So one of our brothers who is a doctor in the eastern suburbs of Damascus, in the place where they're getting bombardment, he sends us a message talking about his day. He was a surgeon. He had a friend. His friend was his scalpel. And he says, every day I look at my scalpel and I say to my friend, the scalpel, we have saved lives today. We feel happy. And subhanAllah, on Wednesday they bring him a widow who lost her husband a couple of months earlier in the same bombardment. And her two very thin and starved boys, less than 10 years of age. And he said she had a shrapnel in her chest. She was breathing very heavily. We tried to save her, but she had her last breath on the table. And then he was just shocked, sad, and he had another life to save. He looked at his friend, the scalpel, and says, what are you doing? Why didn't you get to work? We have a life to save. The woman is pregnant. She's in her 7th month. And he just froze. He couldn't do anything. And he says, all I could think about is, well, who's going to take care of him? Am I going to bring him out to this madness? Who's going to feed him? Who's going to change his diapers? And all that sadness has caught up with him. Until his colleague stepped in and told him, just go. And his colleague performed the operation. And his colleague was crying as well. And they deliver this 7-month embryo who lives, because of lack of facilities, for 2 hours and then follows his mother. And then they look at the boys. One with an amputated leg and the other without an eye. So there is a lot of sadness in this world. You think you have it tough? Could get a lot tougher. And this is one story out of hundreds of similar stories. Just in the last week alone. And even then, it could get a whole lot worse. Let me tell you about an even sadder story that happened in our lifetime. Some time has passed, but it's still very sad. You know, before this dictator and his Iranian and Russian friends have actively killed the population, his father did the same. And in 1981, in February of 1981, he has done something very, very, very bad. He went into a town, Hama, the famous Hama. There was no YouTube at that time. There was no internet. There was no cell phones. There was no WhatsApp. There was nothing. Of course, everybody knew about it, The hypocrisy is the same, it's just articulated differently. But there was nothing. And the news took weeks to come out. He executed 40,000 people in 3 weeks on the streets. Bring the young and the males, put them against the wall, and execute them in the head, in front of their wives, in front of their children. That is his father. And he left us the legacy that his son has killed 10 times that number. And he is very, very known for his very famous saying. But look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a different plan. He made sure everybody knew that one line after that. He said, رَبِّيتَ السِّنِّ ل300 سنة. I have given the sunnah a lesson for the next 300 years. And he was off by an entire order of magnitude. Because only after 30 years, one generation, people were ready to rise up again. So, what is at the end? We could feel very sad. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said many, many, many times 2 things about Al-Akhirah. Just type it and search it and see how many times He has said that. He said, for those who are believers and do good, 2 things that they will not fear, that they will not face. They will not face fear. لا خوف عليهم. They will not face sorrow. ولا هم يحزنون. لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. In fact, they say when they're talking in Jannah, oh, back in the days we used to feel sorry. إنا كنا من قبل في أهلنا مشفقين فمن الله علينا ووقانا عذاب السموم. And Allah has blessed us with the real prize because He has saved us from the fire. قولوا قولي هذا واستغفر الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه كافٍ مزيدا واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله